But really what ultimately was needed, learning vitality fundamentals that I hadn't learned. And that's what I translated into the 9 keys to deep vitality that we can talk about today.
Have you been diagnosed with MS and you're looking for more answers outside your typical medical system? You are not alone. Hi, I'm Adrienne. I'm a nutritionist and a certified integrative nutritional health coach. And I became interested in holistic health because I reversed my own MS symptoms over 10 years ago. Yes, reversing MS is possible. I'm living proof along with so many others. And I enjoy helping others reverse their symptoms too. Are you ready to learn a few things today? I am. Let's dive in. Well, hello, everybody. I am so excited because we have a special treat today. I have invited Dr. Deborah Zucker, and she is a naturopath physician, a mental health counselor, health coach, and author. And we're going to get to talk to her about her books. But I am so excited that you're here, Deborah.
Thanks so much for having me, Adrienne. It's really wonderful to be here.
You're welcome. And you have some deep smarts. So I can't wait for you to share like all the wisdom that you have. And I want to start off by you sharing your story because you've been through your own health journey. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So how
did that start?
Yeah, it began in my early 20s, and I spiraled down into a deep chronic fatigue. It felt like it came out of nowhere. I was just, in that time of life where I was sort of exploring who I was and had this whole idea of what I was going to be doing, career-wise and in my life. And then this happened, and it was sort of like the path I was on just came to an end, and I found myself in bed and hardly able to do anything. And this really catalyzed a deep healing journey that began, on the level of exploring physically what was going on and getting different opinions from different doctors and health practitioners. I grew up in the Midwest, so pretty much just knew the conventional healthcare world at that stage. But this began to open me into exploring more of the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of healing, and opened me into a lot of curiosity around alternative modalities and perspectives, and ultimately led to a calling to support others, because I found that everything I was learning for myself, I was wanting to share with others. And that led me to graduate school for naturopathic medicine, and then later mental health counseling and coaching. And I found that, my own healing journey came right along, with the professional training. So I was still in my own healing as I was exploring all the perspectives I was learning through these programs. And part of the inquiry for me during that time was, what's missing from this education that I'm learning that is really impacting and relevant for my own healing? Like, what is it that I'm finding really supports me in coming alive and emerging out of the fatigue and the patterns of it? So I had that initial intense fatigue, and then 10 years later had another round of intense fatigue, even after I graduated from naturopathic medical school. So the learning needed to have kind of these iterations of a lot of humility, of really getting deeper lessons, and that's what I've translated into my work and into the books that I've written.
Okay, so you had some severe fatigue 2 times in your young life. Mm-hmm. So how did you heal that? How did you figure that out, and how did you heal that?
Yeah, well, it was a combination of a lot of things. So, there were some things on the physical level that needed to be sorted out, not to get into various diagnoses, but so there was some things at sort of that basic diagnostic level. But really what ultimately was needed were kind of the deeper repatterning, kind of learning vitality fundamentals that I hadn't learned. And that's what I translated into the 9 keys to deep vitality that we can talk about today, that are really about kind of the deeper alignment with what my my inner wisdom is is needed to support my vitality. And that goes to every decision, from what I'm putting into my body each day to how I'm moving my body to kind of the deeper soul alignment of who am I here to be, and what is it for me to say yes to in my life, and what do I need to let go of that is draining my life energy.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly,
Yeah.
you kind of got into the mental, emotional, and then diet. Did you change your diet at all, or change your exercise habits? Like, did you kind of look at your whole essence
Yes.
and change everything?
Yes. Yes. I think that's probably the simplest way without going into the keys yet. Like, that's the simplest way to describe it. Like, it was kind of like a complete sort of reorientation and a deepening of self-awareness and a learning about, like, I thought I was doing all the things I was supposed to be doing. And, it happened when I was living in Oregon in a sustainable living community. We were doing all these things. We were eating organic food, and I was helping to grow the food, and I was in community, and still this happened. So sometimes it's not, it's different for each of us, but it's not just simply like the checklist, the self-care checklist. It's deeper than that. And that's where I got into the 9 keys and what I felt like was missing in my own, what was modeled for me, growing up, and what I feel like is missing in the broader culture of how to actually tend to and guide ourselves with skillfulness, with a deep intimacy, and with an honoring and reverence for these lives.
Yeah. Okay. And it sounds like you got into self-care too.
Yes, all of that is self-care.
All of that.
Yes.
So that's what I teach is, diet, exercise, and then mental and emotional health and self-care. So I feel like that's kind of gives you the whole picture. Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. I want to get into your 9 keys to deep vitality. So can you, number 1, tell us like how that came about, like how you thought of doing a book like this? And then I want to go over each one, if that's okay with you.
Yes. Yeah. So like I was saying, these 9 keys were born from my own journey and from working with people and beginning to kind of distill out, like, how do I pass these on, what I've learned that have been so vital? How do I pass them on to others? So I began experimenting with different programs and ways of teaching them, and gradually distilled them into 9 clear keys. And initially, it began, I'd applied to do a TED Talk, and I didn't actually, wasn't approved for the TED Talk, but that became the outline for my book, that application. And so it's sort of this gift that I wasn't expecting, because it was, when I looked at it, I was like, here's the book that I need to write. And it was almost just like I had no choice. Like, here's the book that I need to write. And so that book became the Vitality Map, and it came out in 2016. And then more recently, I put a companion book out called The Vitality Journal. And both of them go through these 9 keys that we'll be talking about.
Okay, good. Well, let's go over them. So yeah, what's number 1?
Number 1 is honoring your unique life. And this one, I think of as just the foundation of it all. It's about remembering day to day the preciousness of being alive, right? Because we can have these wake up times where we get in touch with our mortality. Either someone close to us dies, or we have a near miss, or we just hear about a tragedy that's happened. And it puts us into that direct connection of, I am not going to take this life for granted. And, I know for myself, when this has happened, it evokes this feeling of, oh, I'm going to reach out to all my loved ones. I'm going to, just say all the things that need to be said. I'm not going to waste my time on all these things that are kind of unconscious. And there's a potency to life that comes from that. And this key is about, how do we live from that place? How do we create that remembrance day to day? And really honor that each of us is unique, and no one else but us as adults are here to take care of this body and being, and to really steward it, and to have that come from a place of reverence rather than like a self-care to-do list that can actually feel like a burden or stress us out, but actually to be attuned at that deeper level.
Yeah, no, agree with you. You know, when you lose a loved one or somebody that's really close to you, or if you have something major that happens in your life, like maybe you lose a job or you get into an accident, then it makes you take a step back and realize, okay, I need to do something different. You know, I need to do something that makes me happy and something that brings me joy and something that gives back. You know, you have those moments of, oh, you know, I need to be grateful what I have, right? And then figure out what I really want to do in this life. I kind of call that the midlife crisis syndrome, right?
Yes.
That's awesome. Okay, what's number 2?
Number 2 is facing and embracing your shadows. And so this is so often a missing piece. You know, I imagine all of us have had experiences of watching ourselves sabotage our best intentions, go into avoidance or resistance, even though we know the things that actually make us feel better and support our well-being. We just find ourselves derailed over and over again from actualizing those changes. And this is because we all have unconscious parts of ourselves that are kind of running the show. And this is becoming more popular, thankfully, in mental health, in parts work, and in other kinds of shadow work. But it acknowledges that, you know, we need to attend to these parts of ourselves. And I call it facing and embracing, because it's like we turn towards these parts that have maybe been suppressed or, you know, shoved away. And we turn towards them with love and empathy and care and compassion, and consciously integrate them, because most of these parts are from our wounding, from our childhood, from trauma that we've inherited that's passed down through the generations, or just from what's been modeled or patterned, you know, in our society. And we are unconsciously sort of operating from them. And so once we bring them into our consciousness, we can begin to disentangle from that unconsciousness and operate from a place that is more from our own conscious volition. And from there, the changes we seek start to happen.
I agree with you. You know, I've been through my own traumas. You know, I don't think anybody gets away in this life unscathed at all, right? We all have our own traumas to deal with. And I had some childhood trauma, and I didn't realize, you know, that was something I still needed to heal. This was just a couple years ago. This is after I healed from MS. And I learned that I know that this was part of getting that disease, right? Because it gets trapped in your body. And so you teach how to do that. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And again, you know, just integrating that into our relationship with self-care is really vital, because otherwise what happens is we internalize the failures, you know, we call them failures, and we internalize it in shame and self-judgment that there's something wrong with me. But it's every human being has shadows, their own versions, and to get some support with the shadow realm, we need support, because it's hard to see what we can't see ourselves.
Right. And I know that some people, and I used to do this too, I used to loop negative past situations in my mind. And I learned that I needed to let that go. I need to forgive, forget, and move on. I mean, I didn't forget. I still don't forget, but I learned how to move on from that. And that's what I think a lot of people need help with, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. What is number 3?
Number 3 is strengthening your self-awareness muscles. So this one acknowledges, you know, again, basic life skills that most of us weren't taught, you know, how to become deeply intimate with our own body and being, to actually be able to know the language of the feedback that we're receiving all the time, that's pointing us towards what supports our well-being and what does not. And it is like a language, like a foreign language. And so this one is guidance around how do we increase and strengthen that self-awareness so that we feel empowered to be our own best health guide. and to filter all the advice, from health professionals as well as books or well-meaning loved ones through our own self-knowing, because no one else is living in these bodies and beings 24/7 like we are. We're our own best guide.
Yeah, I feel like that comes with just age,
Mm-hmm.
I think you finally get to a point where you figure out who you really are, right? And that I like how you said getting your own power back, because a lot of us give our power away. We're always like, if we're a mother, we're just always taking care of somebody else, but really we need to take care of ourselves and figure out what we want, right?
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, number 4.
Number 4 is cultivating resilience. And this one, acknowledges that there's no such thing as a stress-free life. That, and if we look at our world today, it's like there's so much that we're having to filter through our body and being and navigate, and so many expectations. And so resilience is about, how do we, when life knocks us down or pulls the rug out from underneath us, because that's going to happen. We might be feeling really strong, like we've got our act together, and then something happens, and that happens. How do we then find our feet again? How do we move back into a state of greater alignment and well-being when that happens? And so resilience, cultivating resilience is about learning a lot of different capacities of self-regulation. So it can look like breathing practices. It can look like particular, other nervous system balancing. I feel like that's needed so much for all of us, different grounding or mindfulness practices. But it also, comes down to everything, like the food that we're putting into our body. Is it something that actually supports our energy and well-being? Or do we sort of have a bit of a spike and then we crash, and the self-awareness that we were talking about in the last key goes right along with this, because you can't really discern which of the practices work best for you without that self-awareness.
Yeah, I feel like resilience has a lot to do with how you deal with stress too, right?
Yes, exactly.
How do you mitigate that? Like how deep do you allow situations or others control your feelings?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
So if you build up that resilience and you let things kind of bounce off you rather than go deep inside,
Mm-hmm.
you have a better way of not healing, but just dealing with pressures that we have every day, right?
Yes, absolutely vital.
Yeah. Okay. Number 5.
Yeah, number 5 is aligning with your yes. And this is one of my favorites. I think, one, just because in my own healing with chronic fatigue, this one was absolutely vital. Like discerning what are my true yeses, and what have I been saying yes to out of obligation or pressure or expectation, or those unconscious parts, of thinking that's what I was supposed to be doing. Because when we're saying yes to things that really aren't aligned, it's like pouring our life energy down a hole in a bucket and we don't get it back. Whereas when we're investing our energy where we get returns, it's like when we're aligned, like what we're doing feeds back and nourishes us. It fills our own well. And so this one's really key. And I teach along with the yes, the metaphor of pruning, how vital it is to prune away those things that really don't belong, so that we're really sustaining and having the courage to live a life of integrity with our own truth. And it does take courage in our world to make these kinds of choices. Some are bigger choices, and some are, like we're talking about, just the day-to-day, what we're choosing to engage with or have be feeding and nourishing ourselves.
Yeah, like aligning everything that makes you feel good, so like for me, I feel like that's something I need to pay attention to. Like how do I feel making this decision?
Mm-hmm.
Like our careers, like are we truly happy doing what we're doing. I quit my real estate career almost 2 years ago
Mhm.
to go into helping people reverse their MS.
Yes.
And it's such a deep passion of mine. I had to let my real estate career go, and it was so hard,
Yes.
but it's something that aligns with me, and
Mhm.
it makes me feel good, and it makes me feel like I'm giving back,
Mhm.
so that's part of it. But aligning with, like you said, the foods that you eat, the things that you do, I feel like we're moving into a new world where people are really, truly figuring out what they want to do, what makes them feel good, not what society, not what their parents think they should do, right? How you live, where do you want to live? That goes to so many different aspects of our life, that
Mhm.
makes you happy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, this key, I guess I want to say this to everyone. Like, if you remember nothing else from today, like, remember this key, because it's absolutely vital, that we unplug from what is not aligned and have the courage to live our life true to us. And it's, again, one that requires courage, but the difference it makes, I mean, burnout, fatigue, autoimmune conditions. I mean, there's so many stress related conditions and syndromes going on right now that I feel like a huge piece is this one, because doctors don't tend to talk about this.
No.
But yeah, again, if we're just feel caught and stuck and putting our life energy towards things that are not fulfilling for us and that we're exhausted by, it's not sustainable. And our body's going to give us feedback of that.
You're right. You're so right. I didn't realize that stress, and I call stress any negative emotion, is going to carry through whatever chronic issue you have. So I really had to, step back and figure out what mine was. And I had to, everybody has to figure that out. So this is a good one, aligning with your yes. I love that. I love that. All right, number 6. What's number 6?
Yeah, number 6 is experimenting with playful curiosity. And this one also, I just want to encourage everyone to really let in, because so often, and especially those of us who are navigating complex health conditions, it's like the act of caring for ourselves can in and of itself become unhealthy and stressful, because there's such a burden of trying to get it right. And again, there's this long list that we're checking off of all the things we're supposed to be doing. And that can internally be a source of, dis-ease. And so this key is about how to disentangle from that, how to orient instead from a place of experimentation and play and curiosity, where it's not about getting it right, but it's about engaging in a way that we're curious and we try things out that we think might help us. And we set ourselves up with an attitude of experimentation where we're learning as we go. So I like to initially say, like, create a 2-week experiment. And because that's not too long that it sets us up to feel like, it's too much, I can't do it. But it's long enough that we start to get feedback. And then once we're in movement and we're trying something, we're watching and observing, expanding our awareness, learning what works for us and what doesn't. And then we adapt and change as we go. So then our experiment gets to change. After the 2 weeks we learn, we'd be like, that worked pretty well, but that part didn't. I'm going to try this instead. And it's so much easier when you're in movement already to stay in movement and to keep engaging. And it also releases, the rule book and the rights and wrongs. So there's more freedom and playfulness and flexibility. And this aligns with life. Life is not rigid. Life keeps changing. We keep changing. So we can't expect ourselves to stay in this box of what we thought we were supposed to do, several months ago or years ago, and instead stay fresh and current with what works for us now.
I love that. Yeah, I know with me, like, I figured out that there's not just one way to do things, right? So, with me changing careers, I thought, okay, I'm just going to go for this. This is what I want to do. This is my passion. And there's so many different routes to go with it, trying to figure out how to help people the very best way that I can.
Yes.
That's just an example. But experimenting with playful curiosity, just trying new things, right? Like, it doesn't have to do with career. Like, go play pickleball if you've never done that before, pick up a golf club, you might like it, like anything like that, or go start a new club, book club on, novel reading, like there's so many things that you can do, just, I feel like just go into your heart, meditate and figure out what you really love, and try to get, others involved too, right? Because social connections is really important too.
Yes.
Okay. Number 7. What is that one?
Yeah. Number 7 is discovering easeful discipline. And so this one is about reframing what discipline is, because for so many of us that word can evoke sort of, this tension and kind of,
corporate.
Yeah, that harsh, strict inner voice, or just having to will ourselves into doing something. And this is about reorienting to what it's really about. And the easeful part is really intentional with this, where if you connect back with that honoring our unique life that we talked about before, then discipline becomes like, how do we really have our own back here with enacting the changes that we seek, of recognizing that, there's always an initial transition period when we're trying something new that can be kind of uncomfortable. That's just part of it, whether it's sort of a detoxing or whether it's like getting our muscles, back engaged after they haven't worked for a while. And so we need structure, we need a clear commitment, and we need strategies that really look at the realities of our life, not an idealized version, but the realities. Like, not to set ourselves up of, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. and go to the gym when we have 2 little kids at home and we're going to be completely exhausted, or whatever your version of it might be. But just to be realistic, and how do I get creative? Like our last key, creative and flexible and experiment, but do so with real intelligence around looking at what are the competing commitments. So oftentimes what we think of as obstacles are things that get in the way. We view as, we did something wrong. But instead, if we look at them, those are other needs that I have. They're needs. So I need to address those needs and these new needs. So kind of really having our back in that way. Commitment, strategy, and structures of support that hold it.
Yeah, I like that. Or it's about, once you figure out, which way you want to go, whether it's diet or exercise or where your life is going, you might have goals, right? And you can come up with different strategies on how to make that goal happen or that reality happen. And, you can make that as easy as hard as you want to, right? You want to make that as easy as possible and joyful as possible.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a good one. Okay, number 8.
Yeah, number 8 is inviting support and connection. And this one is absolutely, absolutely vital. And, it's number 8, but it also feels to me like it holds everything, because we as human beings are relational creatures and we need each other. And one of the things that keeps us stuck in our own healing journeys is that sense of isolation, or again, like the shame or judgment, or feeling like no one else can understand, or I'm sort of in this, no one else struggles like I do. But when we come out of that and we lean in and we intentionally create a team of support and communities that we can be in and heal together in, then it allows us to heal that inner part that actually gets in the way of us creating and sustaining the changes that we seek in our lives. And I honestly, I haven't found anything more powerful than healing communities, which is one of my passions, because it's been so vital for me in my own journey. And it's a core part of what I bring forth in my work is women's circles and creating places for people to heal together.
And I totally agree with you. You know, we are social creatures and we have to be social. In fact, I was just writing a post today. I'm going to put out later, but loneliness is like smoking 15 cigarettes a day. I mean, it's so, it's a health condition. Like you can't be lonely, and you have to have the courage to step outside of yourself and get help. You know, find groups to support you. If your family doesn't support you, they should. Find other groups to be with. You can find friends to be with. You know, I don't want people to be lonely. It's a shame that there's a lot of lonely people in the world too. And you know, anybody listening to this today, if you're lonely, I want you to reach out to people, because having a support system is so important to get you on your way to healing, right? So yeah, and there's so many different ways you can do it.
Yes, and I would just add to that too, you know, there's different kinds of support. You know, there's professional support, there's peer support, there's family support, there's the communities that we were talking about. And what I want to emphasize with this too is that you can be really lonely and isolated even when there's other people around you. So what we're talking about here is actually opening up in a safe space with the people that you feel safe with to these deeper realms of the healing journey together. That is really what helps to sort of bring you out of that isolation and sense of loneliness, is when there's that shared vulnerability and that shared sense of really feeling heard and seen in the deeper realms.
And to know you're not the only one. There's a lot of people that feel this way.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, our last one. What's key number 9?
Our last key is living like you matter. And this one, you know, really brings it full circle. It's about how when we're living from that place of honoring our unique life and, you know, tending to ourselves in all the ways that we've been talking about, we prioritize our own well-being as part of our service in the world. You know, that recognizing that we can't prioritize caring for others over caring for ourselves. It's just not sustainable. So whether it's as a parent or in your work or in your volunteering or in your communities, like to recognize that we all need to fill our own well first so that we can continue to show up with our uniqueness, with our gifts, whatever they may be. And that's how we really let our light shine. It's how we really come into our full vitality, is through that intersection of care for ourselves allows us to show up and care for others and care for our world, which is so needed these days.
Yeah. I kind of feel like it's about learning to love yourself.
Yes.
Right? You have to love yourself first before you can love others.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Okay, so tell me about your other book. It's connected to this, correct?
Yes.
Wait.
Yeah. So the new book, the Vitality Journal, it's a companion to the Vitality Map. And it's a self-guided journal. So you can dive right into each of these keys. There's prompts and practices to make it really personal and relevant to you. And you just start right at the beginning, you know, you start reading and there's a little summary of the keys, and then it'll just guide you through with prompts to allow you to engage, you know, with what will be supportive for you at this time in your journey. And I really encourage, you know, with each of the books, if you can invite a friend along with you in it, like to have it be shared in that way too, that can really add a whole other layer to the process. And then I also offer group programs that are designed around these 9 keys too. So I have a virtual program coming up in January 12th, I believe it starts, called Awaken Your Vitality. And so it's a virtual program where, there'll be videos and other resources, and then a live Zoom call every week in community. So, and a community platform for people to engage. So again, it's a way to come together in community around all of this. And I also have a 9-month retreat-based program too, for those who want to dive even deeper.
That's neat. I feel like this is kind of like journaling with purpose, like taking a deep dive into yourself, right?
Yes.
So does it ask you like certain questions about yourself?
Yes.
And then you kind of figure out, oh, I'm this way and I need to figure out how to let that go, or I feel like this and this isn't healthy. Is it kind of like that?
Yes, it's all personal questions. So, the questions are open, but also guide you, in the content of each of these keys. So
like helping you discover who you really are.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Going deep within yourself. I like that. That's so neat.
Yeah.
Okay, so you told us about your retreats. You do retreats too?
Yes, I do retreats too. And my programs right now are all for women, primarily midlife women, but open to any women. I also offer one-on-one virtual coaching as well for those who want more of that focused individual support too.
That's great. Well, 80% of all autoimmune diseases are women. So I think we're talking to mostly women right now.
Yes.
There's some men, I'm actually coaching a male right now, 20% men and, but mostly women are going through this.
Yes.
Okay. Well, is there anything else that we left out that you do?
That's primarily it. Yeah, I weave together my background with naturopathic medicine and mental health counseling and coaching, as well as most of my adult life holding group spaces, that are safe and intimate to heal together.
Okay, that's great. So if they wanted to reach out to you, they can go to your website?
Yeah, vitalmedicine.com. That's my website, and I'd love to hear from you.
Okay, awesome. Well, can you leave us with one last positive message for people? Something that would help?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm just thinking about this time of year and all that's going on right now. Just this time of year can be so hard for people in general, with all the expectations and pressures of holidays and obligations, and timed with shorter days and darker days, and add to that some of the tragedies that are happening and the crazy weather, and it's just it's a really stressful time. So I guess I just want to really acknowledge this is especially important time to slow things down and really give yourself the space to discern what is aligned for you, what's your true yes here, and to have the courage, if needed, to maybe step away from some obligations or commitments that really might not serve your well-being right now, and to have your own back in this time, in this way.
That's a great message. And I'll tack onto that is just really figuring out how to find joy, right? Finding your joy.
Yeah. And
it's not always easy, but just step back and figuring out, okay, what's really going to make me happy, and spending it with others, right?
Yeah. What's my yes?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Deborah, so much for coming on and sharing all this deep wisdom that you have. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Adrienne. Thanks for having me.
Would you like some support in healing your symptoms? You can totally heal. I've helped people do this. It's possible. So if you want help, reach out. You can email me at info@nourishyourway.com, or you can go to the Work With Me page on my website, and that's nourishyourway.com. And you can get on my program and I'll help you get back to health. Don't wait any longer. You deserve to get your healthy life back.